Today, the Golf's gonna get converted from wheel bolts to wheel studs. When I got my first European car, I was kind of surprised that they had wheel bolts instead of wheel studs. They work fine, but if I have a choice, I would always choose studs. They make it easier to mount the wheel, and they can give you more options for wheel fitment without having to buy extra hardware. So let's get to it. These are the bolts I'm replacing, and these are the studs and lug nuts I'm replacing them with. I chose to go this route because it's a lot easier to mount and dismount your wheels when you have studs in the hub rather than having a naked hub and having to line up the wheel before you stick the bolt in. I went with the M14 by 1.5 to a M12 by 1.5 stud conversion. The thread on this end is the same thread that is on the existing bolt and is on the hub. That has to be the case. But on this side you have options. It's personal preference, but I went with an M12 by 1.5 because all my Hondas have M12 by 1.5 lug nuts, and if I ever swap wheels, I can use whatever aftermarket lug nut I have sitting around to go on these. I don't have to hunt for the M14 by 1.5 lug nuts that are less common. I went with an open-ended lug nut because this is a bit longer than the stock bolt. Every now and then I'll get a wheel that might not quite fit my car without a spacer, so this will give me options. And I also made sure that I got ball seat for my current setup because I'm running the Audi Fat 5s off of a TT on my Golf, and they're OEM wheels with the rounded seat. As you can see there, that's rounded. Now, a lot of the aftermarket lug nuts, probably the vast majority of them, have a conical seat, so I was happy that I could find these. They're kind of rare. One thing I wanted to make sure to check before I put on these 12mm lug nuts was that they weren't too small for my Audi/Volkswagen wheels, because these wheels go on cars that have a 14mm wheel bolt. So I took the lug nut and put it all the way up to where it would seat into the wheel, and I can see that, I could see this on the wheel bolt as well, but I can see that there's plenty of the ball surface from the lug nut mating up with the ball surface on the wheel, and that made me feel a little better, so I'm going to run these with confidence. Not many tools and supplies are needed to complete this job. I'll be using brake cleaner to clean the holes on the hub. I'll be using my wire brushes to clean the surface of the rotor. I'll be using a 5mm Allen wrench and a 5mm bit to attach the studs to the hub. And I'll be using a 1/4 inch socket and my torque wrench to properly torque the stud to the hub. And I'll be using Loctite 263 to hold the stud to the hub. So let's get started. First things first, time to take off the wheel. And of course, I got the car on jack stands before I started. Several companies that sell these wheel stud conversion kits recommend cleaning the surface of the rotor before installing the studs. This is a step I definitely would have skipped had I not seen it in multiple places. After looking into it a bit more, it makes sense to do it. This step ensures that your lug nut torque reading is more accurate, since there's no debris or corrosion between the hub, or in this case the rotor, and the wheel. Alright, I'll call that good enough. Next, I want to make sure that the threads on the hub are all good and clean. If I had thread chasers to go in there, that's what I would use, but I'll just make sure that the wheel bolt can go all the way in and all the way out using just finger pressure. If I don't get any binding, I'm gonna call it good. These are new hubs, so I didn't expect any issues. If you want to see how I installed the new hubs, click the link there. So now, I'm going to clean these out, even though they probably don't need it. I'd rather be safe than sorry. I want the thread locker to have a good surface to adhere to. No debris. Yeah, these hubs are still really clean. I don't know if you can see how much they're still shining in there. I'm going to give it some time to make sure all the brake cleaner has evaporated. I'm also going to hit the hub side threads with some brake cleaner to make sure there's no oils or contaminants on it. I do that with all 5 of them. Just a final check to make sure these go in smoothly with no binding. And now it is time to install the studs. Got my Loctite 263. So now I'll just put a little on the threads. And put it in hand tight. Use my Allen wrench to make sure they're bottomed out. Now it's time to torque them using the torque wrench. Now I've seen companies recommend anywhere from 15 to 24 foot-pounds, so I'm going to use 22 foot-pounds. So now, the studs are installed. On my other cars, wheel studs was always something I took for granted. I'm gonna like dealing with the studs way better than dealing with the wheel bolts. So now, I'm just gonna play the same game with the other 3 wheels. The only difference between installing the rears and the fronts is that I won't be able to use the parking brake to hold the hub stationary on the front. So all I do is I stick a screwdriver into the slots on the rotor on the front so that when I tighten the studs, the hub does not rotate. Other than that, it's the exact same game. Now it's time to put the wheel on for the first time. Look, Ma, no hands. So now, I'm going to torque the lug nuts to 87 foot-pounds, and I'm done. I'm going to give the thread locker a day to cure, and then I'm good to go. If you'd like to see the rest of the work I do on my Mark IV Golf, hit subscribe. Thanks for watching. Take care.